All right. It's your boy Dolo Ren. I know it's been a while. But I was just reviewing some fights and giving some predictions for UFC 319 on my boys podcast, the Productive Conversations podcast. I would tell y'all to go check it out, but the fights are about to happen real soon. And yes, I am recording on a Saturday. So it's a little bit too late to go check that out. But I am returning to making some content, especially for this fight that I'm about to analyze and predict for y'all right now. This is like one of those like incredible fights that don't usually happen. Before I get into it, my apologies for the absence, but I've been trying to stay in shape. I've been trying to, live life. I'm trying to make this comeback to the content, so, please like, share, subscribe if you like. Yeah, we just talk about boxing and MMA here. It's your boy Dolo Ren. Once again, if y'all didn't catch it the first time, we are here to talk about Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford. Yeah, like this is one of those fights, man. It's like you don't really ever see greatness being achieved or being attempted like this. Mostly on the Terence Crawford end because he's going up to fight a guy like Canelo Alvarez, who yes, did start out in the lower weight classes, but now has been acclimated to 160, 168, 175. So, kudos to Terence Crawford for going up, trying to achieve greatness, because that's usually how it goes. You go up and wait for greatness. You want to beat the biggest and baddest in the game. So that's what Terence is trying to do. On top of getting some money, he deserves some bread, bro. He finally got his shine against, it took a while, but that Spence fight, everybody was counting him out, and he rose to the occasion. So if it wasn't for that Spence fight, that undisputed unifying fight, we probably wouldn't even be talking about this right now. Terence Crawford, well done on achieving this and getting to this stage and making it to the dance like that. Kudos. Hopefully I don't jinx nothing because the fight is coming in a few weeks. Hopefully nothing bad happens and then we can see this fight and see how it really turns out. But I got some ideas. I got some thoughts on it. And, we got Canelo Alvarez, who's been on a tear at super middleweight, unifying the belts and being the undisputed at super middleweight after Dimitri Bivol and Better Beef move on from the weight class. Canelo Alvarez is the man at 168. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's the man you got to see. That's the man you got to beat. And historically, we've seen, with Canelo Alvarez that if you're coming to fight, you gotta prove that you're better. You can't just, try to eke out a victory. And that's what got Triple G caught up with the draw. A lot of people thought that Triple G won that fight, including me. Yeah, Canelo Alvarez undisputedly 168, undisputed GOAT, straight up a boxing legend. His name surpasses the weight classes and all that. The fighters that he's had to fight. Not saying Crawford hasn't fought no great fighters, but when it comes to Canelo, we talking about, man, Austin Trout, Miguel Cotto, Triple G, Daniel Jacobs, Jermell Charlo, who he lost to Floyd Mayweather, lost to Bivol, but beat Munguia, Rising Star, beat Triple G in the in the trilogy, you call it, right? Erislandy Lara. When he says he's fought everyone like Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith, like he's fought everybody, man. Yeah, he's coming. He chose to accept this fight with a deal with Turkey Al Sheikh. It's really come at a crazy time, with Crawford beating Madrimov at 154, proving that he can go up and weight and still perform pretty well. Although that fight is a little bit disputed on who won, Crawford still got the W in that. Crawford going up, being undisputed at welterweight, going up to fight undisputed at super middleweight, and Canelo giving that chance to somebody like Terence Crawford. Is this the circumstances here, along with the Saudi Arabian money being thrown into it? We don't really see this often. So this is like an incredible event that's going to happen. Here's the thing with Canelo. Canelo is like basically like the LeBron James of boxing, right? Crawford is going to be facing the LeBron James of boxing in Canelo Alvarez. A legendary fighter that uses his weight in all his punches, can adjust and use slick defensive tactics. Someone that'll pop you with a strong hook out of nowhere, that'll come and, cut the ring off. He's gonna come and march forward to you, and it's, Any wrong move could be the last of your career. Ask Billy Joe Saunders. If you're in there for too long with him, you might have a plumped up arm like Dimitri Bivol did. Even though Bivol, hats off to him, he got the victory against him. It's still a testament to what Canelo brings to the ring. Right, he's a little older on the older side. I guess you could say the twilight of his career, but he's still, fighting in prime form. Terence Crawford, right? He's the best switch hitter of this generation since Marvin Hagler. He's a virtuoso, kind of like Floyd Mayweather was, where he's undefeated. He doesn't get hit very much. We've seen him down. We've seen him in some troubling exchanges, but the difference between Crawford and Mayweather is that Crawford, at that weight class at 147 and 140, he was going for it, whereas Mayweather didn't really go for it as much. With Crawford, it's literally like he's lanky. He could switch to that southpaw stance and he could move to the side and just hit you with a shot that you're not expecting. And he can hit you from farther out than you think because of the switching stances, because of the lankiness, and because of that IQ and the footwork mixed in with that, that homebred speed and power. Terence Crawford is a problem. Absolute problem. Hasn't been defeated yet. Nobody solved it yet. Crawford's been talking about how he's acclimated to the weight class. Dimitri Bivol says that Crawford is, he looks strong and big. With that out the way, I want to really talk about the fights that I was studying. So I'll start with Canelo, right? I was studying the Daniel Jacobs fight, right? Danny Jacobs is someone that's strong, fast, resilient, and switches stances. So I thought this was, a good fight to study. One thing I noticed about Canelo in this fight was that, as you can see with the other super middleweight fights, Canelo has absolutely no fear fighting a bigger person. He's gonna march forward no matter who it is, no matter how strong you are, no matter who you are. He's gonna march forward. Canelo, like he's gonna throw some wide hooks. He's gonna throw some wild, huge uppercuts upstairs, as he did against, Danny Jacobs. I think where Danny Jacobs went wrong was like, coming forward to Canelo. I think if you fight Canelo in a straight line, no matter what stance you're in, I don't think it's gonna bode well for you. I just don't think you can fight Canelo in a straight line. I just really don't think so. He's too strong to just come forward to him, and he has too many tricks up his sleeve. He's gonna break your body down with punches to the shoulder like he did against Callum Smith. He's gonna time you and really hit you with a really hard shot like he did against Billy Joe Saunders and Amir Khan. Canelo, yeah, you can't fight him in a straight line. That's one thing I realized in this Jacobs fight. At some point, Jacobs he started going southpaw against Canelo to see how that would work. And he was hitting him up. When you're in that southpaw stance, you're kind of naturally going to your right. And I think if you go to your natural right as a southpaw against Canelo, not a very good move either. He usually cuts off the ring for his footwork. He doesn't do a lot of crazy footwork. He's always thinking in there. Canelo doesn't look like he's thinking, but he is thinking and adjusting to what you're doing because he's a vet. He's a guy that's been around and fought basically every style. Tricky footwork, tricky cutting off the ring, and tricky ways of cutting off momentum for the other fighter. That's one thing I noticed, that right hand was starting to land for Canelo when Jacobs was in southpaw. Jacobs put up a really good fight, but Canelo was able to pick through certain shots and like make it through the rounds and show his presence, control the action in a sense. Canelo did really good against a switch hitter in Danny Jacobs, and he was able to adjust little by little, implement his game plan, and get the victory. But one thing I also noticed is that when Canelo's throwing these wide hooks and stuff, it's not that Jacobs capitalized too much on it. But I know that Terence Crawford will be able to capitalize on those looping long hooks that Canelo does. If he shoots them from the outside and only puts it behind the jab or something like that, it's not going to be enough. Those long, open, looping shots, it's not going to work. Crawford will be able to counter that. So if Canelo can adjust and fight on the inside more, which he's very capable of doing, as we all know, he'll be fine, but he'll have to adjust to that and he'll feel that. And Crawford's going to hit him pretty hard, so he will feel some power, and I'm pretty sure he will respect Crawford's power. That's going to be trouble for Canelo, but he did really good against a switch hitter in Daniel Jacobs, someone that was strong and fast and was switching it up on him. Now, we're going to Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford, one fight, I've seen a bunch of Terence Crawford fights. We've all seen the Gamboa fight. If you haven't seen Crawford versus Yuriorkis Gamboa, you might not even be a boxing fan. Kell Brook hurt my heart, but it's all good. One fight that I really had to study though was against Victor Pastal. Not just because Canelo was making fun of him for that. Like he really wasn't giving him credit for the Pascal fight. Pascal he was a killer when he was good, So I thought that was a decent, I thought that was a decent fight to watch. Someone that was going to come forward and bring that pressure similar to Canelo. Now, one thing, this is a way different fight than Canelo and Jacobs, where Canelo and Jacobs was back and forth, but Canelo was able to edge it due to like tricky, due to like little tricks he was doing, like swatting away the uppercuts, using the head movement, leaning on that front foot to get out the way of Danny Jacobs' shots, and just implementing his game plan beautifully while dealing with the switch hitting. Crawford, this was like a one-sided affair basically, where Crawford was able to take advantage in the beginning of the round to get some knockdowns on Victor Pascal through the middle of the fight. Crawford was just like, moving around the ring, using his feet, going one way, going the other, hitting them in southpaw stance, hitting them in orthodox, uh, peppering them with the jabs and stuff. When they got clinched up, Crawford's throwing these hooks upstairs to deal with the clinch. With Crawford's movement and his game plan, with that game plan, it took away Victor Pascal's jab. And once Victor Pascal couldn't set anything up, it was over for Victor Pascal. Canelo is able to engage with you without having to set up a jab. He doesn't need to. He could just march you down and hit you with a hook downstairs, hit you with an uppercut and then a hook, or with something, or feint like, a hook to the top and it hits you to the bottom. Canelo is tricky like that and crafty like that, where he can enter exchanges without having to use his jab. So that's something that Crawford's not really going to be able to take away from Canelo, because Canelo won't be utilizing that jab like you would think. He's going to be dealing with a fighter that doesn't need to set up jabs. He's not going to do him like Pascal, where Pascal couldn't get anything going after, getting his jab taken away. These two fights, I really had to study because I felt like they were the best things to study. What needs to be mentioned also is like how they approach their fights. Terence Crawford will approach it in like, an athletic kind of phenom way where it's like, you're not going to touch me, I'm going to touch you. But if we do exchange, I'm going to get the better of them and then I'm going to be on you and I'm going to get you out of there. Whereas Canelo, he's just thinking like, yo, come forward, terminate, hit him up, have him thinking, terminate. Like every shot has a bad intention. Canelo will come to break you down. He'll come to break your body down. He'll hit you up in the arm like he did against Callum Smith. He's gonna like mush you to kind of like get in another shot, kind of like how he did against Triple G in certain exchanges. Like he gets real physical is what I'm trying to say. And Crawford, he'll just he'll get he'll use his switch stance hitting to get in and out and then hit you with some hard shots, but he's not going to be as physical as Canelo. In the clinch, yeah, he'll get physical with Canelo in the clinch, but the clinch is where Canelo almost lives. And so it's like I think Canelo has the advantage in the clinch as well. Crawford would have the advantage on the outside, even though Canelo's very good at cutting off the ring. Crawford's still longer and he's faster. Basically as much experience as Canelo would in that sense, and utilizing that ring. That's gonna be tough for Canelo. If Canelo's gonna be on the outside all night, then it's gonna be a tough night for him. But I do see Canelo getting on the inside and being able to work his game plan. How I see it going ultimately, Terence Crawford for the first 4 rounds is gonna probably dominate Canelo. Gonna use that mix of speed and power with the footwork, the switching directions, switching stances, in and out. Canelo's gonna be reading on him, vice versa. But Crawford will be faster and probably a little crispier in those exchanges. With that extra weight he's adding on to, it's gonna have some impact and it's gonna be dangerous for Canelo in the first few rounds. But I feel like Canelo will start to break him down over time. He'll start utilizing the body shots. As you see, Canelo's actually been drilling those body shots in training camp. I do expect him to be able to cut off Crawford with his feet, not with his feet really. He'll get in close proximity, but then he'll throw them hooks that, which he has to be careful of because Crawford can counter. But I do think he'll utilize the hooks to cut off the ring. When Crawford is in the later rounds, Canelo's gonna be, really going into the body and And I think that Crawford is going to taste at some point, right? It might be round 6 or round 7. Crawford's really going to taste Canelo's power hard, and then he will start to be on the retreat. That weight is going to affect you. I really do think it's going to affect Crawford later in the round, later in the fight. And then Canelo, with his trickiness, with, his expertise in landing those timed shots with that patience, I think he will land something really hard in the ninth round or later. I predict Crawford using that southpaw stance a little bit too much and going to the right a lot. If he's going to have that tendency to move to the right against Canelo, I think that's going to be a problem. And I'm more so focused on Crawford's movement because he uses it more in his game plan. I think Canelo is at some point gonna catch him hard in like the middle of the fight, and then somewhere from round 9 and onward, I think Canelo's gonna be breaking him down little by little, and he's gonna land a body shot that's gonna really hurt him to the liver, or he's gonna break a rib. You heard it. Canelo will either hit him with a hard body shot or he will break Crawford's rib. It'll be a stoppage. Maybe Crawford makes it out that round, but maybe not. But if he does, then he won't make it to the next round. He won't get off his stool. You got it. That's a doctor stoppage right there, and a rib injury. That's what I'm thinking. That's how I see it playing out based off, how I studied Crawford and Pascal fight and the Canelo and Jacobs fight. I do see Canelo being able to stop him with a body shot, breaking a rib. It's gonna be a hell of a fight regardless, regardless. I'd say the only other outlier decision that could happen is Crawford winning a split decision. That's the only two options I see out of this, and I definitely see Canelo taking the victory with a late fight technical knockout stoppage, or just a straight up knockout like he did against Amir Khan. And I think Crawford's gonna look really good for the first half of the fight, but that's not gonna be enough, and Canelo will take over eventually. As all things in life, nothing is guaranteed. So we still have to watch the fight of the century. I'm not sure how the undercards are gonna go. I haven't really looked too much into undercard fights, but kind of doesn't matter. This is Canelo versus Crawford. Like, this is what we're here for. So, yeah, that's my prediction. Both amazing fighters, both legendary fighters, but due to certain tendencies that each fighter has and abilities that each fighter has, and the biggest factor being them fighting at 168, I don't think Crawford's ready for it. That's my prediction, and that's what I think is going to happen. So let's see what happens. And, most importantly, let's enjoy the fights. Let's enjoy the fights. And, this your boy Dolo Ren. Canelo's going to take it. We all going to see it happen. And it's gonna be an awesome night. Shout out to all the boxing fans, keeping the sport alive and keeping it going on X and keeping it going on Instagram. You know, I'm in the mix with y'all too. So, I'm in the trenches with y'all too. So, I'm gonna keep more content coming. I got some more video essays coming, more predictions and more analysis coming. And yeah, you can expect more stuff. You might see me throwing in some training videos. I've been training myself, just lost like 27 pounds since last year. Been doing some good stuff. So I'll give y'all some insight on that. And then, we'll keep talking about fighting, keep talking about MMA, we'll keep talking about boxing and all that good stuff. So, it's your boy Dolo Ren. I'm signing out. I'll catch y'all soon. So like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. I'll catch y'all.